Southern California, that horrific mass shooting on Saturday night. The victims were celebrating the Lunar New Year at a dance studio in Monterey Park when the gunman came in. At least 10 people killed, more in the hospital as we speak. And police say the suspect took his own life after officers approached him in a white van yesterday.
Gunshots rang out around 10:20 p.m. Saturday night.
And I got approximately 10 deceased.
Police say the gunman entered the venue and opened fire, killing 10 people and injuring 10 others.
Suddenly heard the boom, 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 boom.
Hattie Pung was there as the shooting broke out. She says several people around her were killed.
You will see the body already, several lying there.
At least 10 people were killed in a mass shooting Saturday at a dance studio in Monterey Park, California, as the city's Asian American community was celebrating Lunar New Year weekend. It is the deadliest attack since May 24th, when 21 people were killed in an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. And a motive has not yet been determined when police briefed the public on Sunday night. So let's take a look at that.
Based on the previous information relayed by homicide investigators regarding the white van involved and seen leaving the scene of the incident in the city of Alhambra, the Torrance Police Department was notified, and at 10:20 a.m., the Torrance police officers located the white van, matching the description near the area of Sepulveda Boulevard and Hawthorne Boulevard. As Torrance officers pulled behind the vehicle, the white van entered a shopping center parking lot. When officers exited their patrol vehicle to contact the occupant, they heard one gunshot. And although that closes a portion of a very long day for all of us, the investigation is still ongoing. Sheriff's homicide detectives are working around the clock, gathering additional information and working on determining the motive behind this extremely tragic event.
So you got some information from that police briefing about this tragic shooting in California, but I've got a little more information for you here from Associated Press. The gunman, whom the authorities identified as 72-year-old Hu Can Tran, is believed to have then gone to a dance hall in the neighboring city of Alhambra, but he fled, according to the authorities. Officers later found him in a parked van after he reportedly shot himself to death. None of the victims had been officially identified as of Sunday night. Speaking at a Sunday evening news conference, the sheriff said he didn't have the exact ages of the people killed, but that all appeared to be over 50. The massacre in Monterey Park was the nation's 5th mass killing this month. And I'm gonna say that just one more time for you. 5th mass killing this month. And it struck one of California's largest celebrations of a holiday observed in many Asian cultures, dealing another blow to a community that has been the target of high-profile violence in recent years. This is a horrible tragedy and one that we see all too often in America. I mean, we're only in the 3rd week of January, and this is the 5th mass killing of this month. Dan, you're in California. What are your thoughts about this?
No, yeah, while I'm not directly affected, like these are a lot of areas as someone who grew up in Los Angeles County that I know very well. I give a lot of crap to my transplant friends who say that East Los Angeles is like Echo Park and Silver Lake, but that's not true. That's places like Alhambra, that's places like Monterey Park that have these rich ethnic histories. Like especially people talk about how Monterey Park especially was one of the suburban areas of Los Angeles, which kind of like Boyle Heights was for Mexican immigrants, was a real home for Asian immigrants to kind of come and actually have their shot, the American dream. You even go down to like Alhambra is a similar way. Torrance, California, where the gunman was actually found, is also a heavily Asian American community. So thankfully there's no more carnage there. But I think one of the most annoying things that I see in the coverage of this, I mean, let alone the fact that like you're emphasizing, this is not even the fully complete month of the year, and we've probably already had more mass shootings than like any civilized country in the world in 2023 so far. We're going to continue to beat that number. But the fact that you have people feeling like they're scoring a point rhetorically because we live in this team perspective of politics, where they're like, it can't be a hate crime because the shooter was apparently Asian. And it's like, first of all, we have to talk about the misogyny that always happens, and a lot of these shooters end up being men. There's rumors about the motives of the shooting that are still very early, so it's hard to get into. But there are so many layers in the fact that there are many other countries who celebrate Lunar New Year, and America only happens to be the one where we have violence and when this is involved. So it's really shocking and terrifying. My heart like pours out for these communities, but like, yeah, regardless of who the shooter is, this is yet another situation where another community, especially the Asian American Pacific Islander communities, can't feel safe celebrating in their own spaces, and it's just really terrible.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point about the argument that's usually made by right wingers, which is, they're a member of this community, they can't possibly be committing a hate crime, which I'll just say as someone who's in law school, that's not true at all. Conservatives, you can absolutely commit a hate crime against a member of a group that you are also a part of. So if they're watching this, please stop using that argument. But I do have a little more information about the shooting. So Brandon Say fought off the gunman when he arrived at the second location. Let's take a look at this.
Something came over me. I realized I needed to get the weapon away from him. I needed to take this weapon, disarm him, or else everybody would have died. When I got the courage, I lunged at him with both my hands, grabbed the weapon, and we had a struggle. We struggled into the lobby, trying to get this gun away from each other. He was hitting me across the face, bashing the back of my head. Finally, at one point, I was able to pull the gun away from him, shove him aside, create some distance, point the gun at him, intimidate him, shout at him and say, "Get the hell out of here. I'll shoot. Get away. Go." I really thought I would have to shoot him if he came at me. This is when he turned around and walked out the door, jogged back to his van.
Just incredibly, incredibly brave from him. But I'll say, I'm tired of people having to be brave. I'm tired of average American citizens, average people having to, stand up to people with guns and confront them and be put in these situations where they have to be brave and they have to put their lives on the line, because we are the only country where this happens. This shouldn't be happening on a regular basis. A couple politicians also made some statements about the shooting. California Governor Gavin Newsom took to Twitter, tweeted this out: "Spent time in Monterey Park today, meeting with leaders and those impacted by this terrible tragedy. No other country in the world is terrorized by this constant stream of gun violence. We need real gun reform at a national level." And I think that he did a good job in that statement by pointing out that the gun reform needs to come at the national level, because a lot of people respond to this and say, well, California has some of the most strict gun laws in the country, but you had a mass shooting in California. Clearly gun laws don't work, but they're right to an extent. They don't work when it's a state by state basis for gun laws, because you're always gonna be able to travel to a neighboring state and buy a gun with significant ease, especially considering the states that border California, which have exceptionally lax gun laws, and then come back. And I'm not saying that's what the shooter did in this instance, but that is the reason why it has to be national reform. Speaking of national reform, President Biden also weighed in on Twitter. He tweeted out, "Jill and I are praying for those killed and injured in last night's deadly mass shooting in Monterey Park. I'm monitoring the situation closely as it develops and urge the community to follow guidance from local officials and law enforcement in the hours ahead." So I have some more data about mass shootings just this year, 3 weeks into the year, and 36 mass shootings. This is America in 2023. So this chart says 35, 36 with this latest mass shooting. And it's just horrifying.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.